The following is a Shaw TV Public Affairs presentation. Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Welcome to Shaw Constituency Report. My name is Judy Feinstein. I'm here with Andrew Weaver, the MLA for Oak Bay Gordon Head. In the first half of the show, Andrew and I will be discussing what occurred during the fall session of the Legislature. And after the break, Andrew will talk with Teresa Hartrick, constituency assistant in our community office in the constituency, about the work that we do there. Andrew. The fall session of the Legislature has just ended, and there did not seem to be any significant bills or legislation of substance. In your opinion, was it a useful session, or were there other issues that should have been debated?
Well, Judy, you're right. There was clearly a need for a fall session in the view of the government in light of the fact that they have been criticized rather heavily over the years for not holding fall sessions. But we must remember we had this rather urgent summer session where we were brought in to approve a project development agreement for Petronas to build an LNG facility up in Prince Rupert. We spent a little over a week here in the Legislature in the summer at great expense to the taxpayer. We should have been debating that now, not then. Instead, what this session was filled up with was a number of odd things. We debated Red Tape Reduction Day. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now in BC, we have 5 legislated days. We have the Holocaust Memorial Day, Douglas Day, Terry Fox Day, BC Day, and Family Day, and Red Tape Reduction Day. I mean, it's absurd, and it belittles and the other significance of these other events too. We debated for quite some time a motion on Site C, despite the fact it had already been approved, many months ago. It was essentially a debate put to trap the NDP, in my view, into taking a position on Site C. We debated what I called the Comma and Spell Checker Act, where a number of commas were replaced. We even had in the bill a bracket which was mistakenly italicized was unitalicized. We had, I'm not making this stuff up, I mean, it's unbelievable. We debated the changing of willful internally in the document. So there was, and then there was, a couple of other good housekeeping pieces of legislation that we could have done any time. One of the ones, there was 2 miscellaneous statutes, Amendment Act, this is cleaning up. We've had a few other pieces of legislation, but all in all, taken together, this was a session that was uninspiring. It was one where we dragged out discussions. The Election Boundaries Act, for example, we're making some changes in the electoral boundaries. We had the process is first you must debate a motion to approve them, and we did that for several days. And then you must debate the bill that essentially brings into force the motion. And that debate was going on. In fact, it was so absurd that there was at least several likely MLAs who essentially said the same speech twice. And I spent some time there in my address trying to say this is what we should be debating, and raising issues there instead of debating the minutiae that we debated this session.
Yeah. And you've consistently raised concerns about the economic direction of the government, specifically in terms of liquefied natural gas. In fact, on the final day of the session, you called for an emergency debate, and we have a video of that.
By leave, I move that the House do now adjourn to discuss a matter of urgent public importance, namely a debate concerning an economic backup plan for British Columbia, given the complete collapse of this government's all-in strategy on LNG and the urgent need to transition to a low-carbon economy. Madam Speaker, this government spent the last 3 years touting BC's imminent LNG industrial boom. They sent a signal to the market that if you wanted to do business here in BC, it had to be something to do with LNG. Clearly not the signal that many sectors wanted to hear. From the answers, Honourable Speaker, in the question period, it's clear that government has no plan B. It's clear that they have no climate strategy. Frankly, it's clear that they're rudderless. Honourable Speaker, as legislators, we have a duty to the people of British Columbia to urgently turn our attention towards a debate for Plan B for BC's economy prior to next week's First Ministers meeting in Ottawa and the upcoming UNFCCC meeting in Paris. As Section 35 demands, there is no other time in this session to debate such a plan for BC's economy in light of the monumental failure of this government's plan for LNG and the urgent need to transition to a low-carbon economy?
So firstly on this, Andrew, where does the province stand in terms of LNG development so far? And in reality, will there be an industry that matches the promises of the 2013 election?
Well, where we stand right now, of course, is that there is not a single final investment decision. The government in the election campaign promised 100,000 jobs, $100 billion prosperity fund, $1 trillion increase in GDP, debt-free BC, elimination of PSD, thriving schools and hospitals, all from this hypothetical industry called LNG. Now, I've been pointing out for 3 years consistently that this was never an economic reality. We have British Columbia, a small player in the global market. We have the US, which in January 2016 is going to start exporting LNG. We've got China signing long-term agreements with Russia. We have Australia bringing on stream vast quantities of LNG. And recently, we have sanctions being talked about being lifted from Iran, the world's largest reserves of gas. So to think that somehow BC is magically placed in this global economy with LNG was misguided all the way along. The problem here is that the government, through this Hail Mary passive hope in the election campaign, has spent the rest of the time trying to deliver upon it. What it did by doing that was send a signal to the market that if you want to do business in BC, it better have something to do with LNG. There are companies who make investment decisions based on directions that government said, and this is not the direction we should be heading in for several reasons, not the least of which it never made any sense economically. So where we stand now is there's nothing. We have what brought back in an emergency session or in the summer to desperately try to get a project development agreement through that'll bring Petronas to BC. Haven't heard anything from them. The Goldman Sachs just came out with spot market forecast for the next couple of years. They're forecasting in 2018 price of landed LNG in Japan being like $4.50. It would cost more to ship it than essentially we'd have to give people a way to take it. So rather than actually continue down this path of fiscal folly, what we should be doing is actually sending a signal to the market that in British Columbia, we are more than just LNG, and hence the reason why I tried to get this emergency debate in, because we have coming up the Conference of Parties to Paris, where British Columbia and Canada are going to make commitments on reducing greenhouse gases. Their fiscal folly of trying to bring an LNG industry despite market conditions into BC has meant that we've lost our way in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and we need, as a legislature, to actually discuss what we're going to do. Now, sadly, the government did not wish to have that debate. I do appreciate that the NDP supported me in wishing that debate to occur, but it was shut down.
And if the LNG will not pan out, and in reference to the upcoming climate summit in Paris, what direction should we take in terms of economic and resource development?
Well, the first thing is that it is simply impossible for British Columbia to even meet its LNG dream and then meet its also legislated greenhouse gas reduction targets. So you can't have it both ways. You either have an LNG industry and say no to greenhouse gas emission reduction, or you realize that that's not going to happen and you actually focus on greenhouse gas emissions. And therein, in my view, is where the opportunity is. British Columbia has a unique opportunity to position itself as leaders in terms of the technology of tomorrow, because what we are very good at is we're very good at creating innovation. Innovation is something that British Columbia have a rich tradition of. The clean tech sector is a vibrant sector here in BC. That's a sector ready to go. It's a sector that should be nurtured rather than shut down. And there is a direction, I think, with our energy policy, we should be heading.
Mm-hmm. And the fall session did raise a particular concern, one which the government would probably have liked to have avoided, and that is in regard to information and privacy. Can you tell us what that was all about?
Right. This is a so-called triple delete scandal that's been ongoing during question period. Now, the opposition did a very good job bringing this forward and making it an issue. It's a very serious issue when the information that is being used to come up with government decisions is not available through freedom of information. This is in contravention of the Privacy Commissioner and our Freedom of Information laws. And in fact, there was a very scathing report that was given by the Privacy Commissioner on some of the inability of the opposition to get FOIs. Now, it's more complex too than just not giving information. There has to be a delicate balance. I frankly think that the civil service, if they're working under the threat that every email they ever sent to anyone can be FOI'd at any time by anybody, it's a pretty onerous potential workload that they'll have to deal with, and a lot of wasted money on the taxpayer. So, I think we do need to have some balance there. Is that we shouldn't be FOIing for fishing trips just to see what dirt we can find taken out of context, but we should at the same time, records must be kept. And the fact that FOI requests were going in and nothing was being found, and then the official opposition were finding the things that they were looking for from third parties, suggests that there needs to be a lot of inward looking as to what's going on in government. And people do not trust a government that deletes records and then claims there are none when in fact obviously there were and are records.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And another area that you've concentrated on is over trophy hunting and wildlife preservation. In fact, you introduced a private member's bill to amend the Wildlife Act, and we have a video of that here.
It's my pleasure to introduce this bill that, if enacted, would remove the minister's ability to designate and exempt classes of applicants from having to enter lotteries or other methods of random selection when seeking limited entry hunt permits. If enacted, these amendments would require all hunters to enter draws for their limited entry hunt permits regardless of resident, non-resident, or non-resident alien designation, as is done in other jurisdictions. As it currently stands, Honourable Speaker, local hunters have to enter a lottery if they want to harvest an animal managed under the limited entry hunt system, but out-of-province hunters can simply buy a permit for the same species and management unit area. Foreign hunters coming to BC already enjoy cheaper permits and greater allocation percentages than nearly every other jurisdiction in North America. It's clearly unfair that they can buy their way into limited entry hunts year after year when British Columbians are left entering lotteries in the hopes of being granted the opportunity to harvest a public good in their home province.
Andrew, what is the purpose of the bill, and how would that change hunting permits in the province?
Well, right now, residents of British Columbia have to go for limited entry hunts into a lottery system. They essentially put in their name and they hope that they get drawn. We've had stories from people who've spent their life in British Columbia and never been drawn a ticket. You can bypass that. You can bypass the resident lottery pool by essentially going to a guide outfitter. Essentially, if you have money, you can jump to the front of the queue. Mm-hmm. And the way that is done historically is to attract foreign hunters in, often for trophy hunters, into the province of British Columbia. That's not fair. A British Columbian who's grown up here, whose family has grown up here, should have the right to hunt, first and foremost, relative to a foreign hunter coming in for trophy hunting. So the purpose of this bill was to disallow the minister from actually creating a separate a way of issuing permits in a manner that are not consistent with the lottery. So we would now have a second lottery, a lottery for foreign hunters that they would have to compete with. And other jurisdictions have done this. This has been, I spent a lot of time on the wildlife file. I've introduced another private member's bill earlier on this as well. It's a very important issue because hunting has been part of our tradition for a very long time. First Nations, residents, and it's also a very important wildlife management tool as well. It should be there based on merit. It should be there based on residency. It shouldn't be there simply because you're a wealthy foreigner and giving you the ability to jump to the front of the queue.
Mm-hmm. And final question before the break. There will be new ridings in the province for the 2017 election, and also in your riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head, there'll be changed boundaries. Can you explain to the viewers why this is happening? What's happening?
Every few years, of course, we have to relook at our elections because population changes. Some areas grow, some shrink, and so they took a look at the ridings in the region, and our riding changed ever so slightly. Now, the boundary used to be along Foul Bay Road. That boundary is shifted to Richmond Road. So the Jubilee Hospital, the area between Richmond and Foul Bay, all the way down to Fairfield from Fort Street is now within Oak Bay, Gordon Head. Then the boundary takes a little veer along Fairfield Road, just so that the south side of Fairfield Road is in the boundary until Ross Bay Cemetery, so the Crescent Beach area, Crescent Road area. So it's expanded a little bit. I welcome these new constituents, and I look forward to serving them in the weeks and months ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. We're heading for a short break now, and we will return shortly with more Constituency Report.
Welcome back to Constituency Report. I'm Andrew Weaver, the MLA for Oak Bay, Gordon Head, and I'm going to be talking with Teresa Hartrick, Constituency Assistant in the office of our constituency. Teresa, welcome to Constituency Report.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure. We like to do things slightly different. Rather than having me tell the viewers what we do in the constituency office, I thought it would be an opportunity for the constituency assistant to actually explain the type of things that are done in our office. And so the first question would be, what are the typical things that we can do, and what is the role of the constituency assistant, and how can we help the constituents of Oak Bay, Gordon Head?
So our main role is to help constituents access provincial services or navigate provincial ministries. So anything from healthcare to social assistance, affordable housing, BC housing would be sort of our main areas. If people come to us with questions about services or about different issues, we'll help them with those.
Can you give me an example for, say, of a health issue that we might have had to deal with over the last few months?
So MSP would be an issue. So people having issues accessing their MSP, they'll come to us, and they've kind of tried talking with the ministry and have had issues getting through to people. So they'll come to us, and we can advocate on their behalf and just make some phone calls and sort of figure out what the issue is and hopefully help them.
Have we had any examples we might give of a social service type issue that we might be able to help out with?
Yeah, so accessing funding for different issues. So with BC Housing, the SAFER program, which is the Seniors Income Assistant Housing Program, helping people that are sort of applying for that program, helping people get funding for social income, social assistance, those sorts of.
Okay, and we also communication from our office is obviously important. So one of the roles of an MLA is not only to be there to deal with the issues that the constituents bring to us, but communicate to the constituency what we have done on their behalf both in the legislature and in the community. So maybe you can tell the viewers a couple of the means and ways we communicate to the constituents about what we've done.
So our main way would be through our website. So we write blogs on different issues. So we've done a series on poverty and homelessness, a series on mental health, youth mental health. We also have a monthly newsletter. So we'll highlight kind of 5 of the main topics we've worked on that month. So whether it's in the legislature, whether it's in the community, we'll maybe highlight different local businesses or local youth that are doing great things.
Well, tell me about, because you were the lead on our series both on poverty and homelessness, as well as our a series on adolescent mental health. Maybe you can tell us what was the process, but which led us, and you in particular, who took the lead on this, to start this series going to provide information. How did it come about?
Well, poverty and homelessness and just sort of the Ministry of Social Development and social income issues are a big issue we hear about in our constituency. So different constituents concerned about levels of income assistance, which haven't increased since 2007, I believe, affordable housing availability in the area, issues with homelessness. So we just got a lot of feedback from community about that, and started doing research and reached out to local organizations such as Our Place, Mustard Seed, Dandelion Society, and just decided that this was a serious issue and a lot of people were passionate about it, and there are a lot of ways that we could improve what we're doing in the province. So we wrote about a 6 or 7 part blog series on it, sort of talking about different factors that lead into homelessness and poverty, what we could be doing better, examples of other provinces or other places in the states that might have housing first approaches or poverty reduction plans that are we could be looking at for our own province. And then also giving people constructive ways that they can maybe give back and do something in even just the sort of simple step they can take to affect change in their community if this is an issue they're concerned about.
You know, I can't underestimate how impressed I was with the 2 series that you did, and it was really important to me because I like to form opinions based on a researched opinion, a research point of view, to get an understanding of what other jurisdictions are doing, to see what the issues are, and in doing this, I know personally as an MLA, I've been contacted quite a number of times about issues with respect to adolescent mental health. As you know, I've actually had to call emergency services directly myself to get interventions. But you know, the research, what it did, what was so wonderful about it is it framed the particular issues that we saw in a broader context of what the problems are. And so you know, I can't thank you enough for the work that you did in that. I did want to ask another question. It's with respect to a workshop that we recently held. And I wanted to know, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and whether other town halls and what the processes are involved there in terms of bringing the issues that we decide to discuss them. You know, the one I'm referring to, of course, is with the Dementia Society. Maybe you can tell the viewers a bit about that.
Yeah, so we were reached out to by the BC Alzheimer's Society, and they wanted our help in co-hosting a dementia-friendly workshop in our community. So we contacted the Berwick House and worked with them to set up a workshop where someone from the Alzheimer's Society came in and gave sort of an hour-long presentation on making BC a more dementia-friendly community. So we highlighted that in our newsletter, wrote a blog post kind of announcing it, reached out to constituents, let them know. We've had similar instances with, after our poverty and homelessness series, we did a town hall on poverty and homelessness. And we reached out to Reverend Al at the Dandelion Society, people at Our Place, and kind of let them know what we were doing and asked for their input. And they brought out a lot of people that are personally impacted by poverty and homelessness to come out and be at our town hall and educate us on what it's like from their perspective and what we can do to kind of make them,
No, that's great. And you know, there's so many things that are done in the Constituent office. I mean, the training, you know, somebody might say, what if you wanted to be a constituent assistant? Tell me about your background to do it. I mean, both you and Judy have a very similar background in terms of the training. What did you do at the university?
I have a psychology degree.
Comes in handy, I'm sure.
It does. It definitely. I would say there isn't really, I don't think training can really prepare you. It's sort of an on-the-job learning experience. I mean, obviously understanding the different ministries and the different services and what we can do, but a lot of it is just listening to people. People will call in and we can't always help them with the problems that they need help with or accessing the issues.
Give me an example of the type of problem we cannot help with.
So legal issues we can't help with. I mean, we can definitely refer to them to places like the Justice Access Center or TAP Society. Surgery wait times or access to doctors, we can't always do anything. We can give suggestions, but we can't help someone skip a surgery wait time.
find people a job. I'm sure.
Yeah, people needing jobs or kind of down on their luck and just needing a little support, and we can't directly help them, but we can provide that support and that ear to listen to, because a lot of times they've been making phone calls and getting machine after machine, and people that are kind of stressed out in their own jobs and are, I'm sure, it's a very difficult job constantly having people calling needing help and not being able to provide that help. So they don't always, when people contact us, they've maybe had a few people kind of they didn't feel were the most respondent. So just being an ear to listen to and empathize with what they're going through, and yeah, I would say that's probably the most impact that we can have.
You must find that there's a lot of rewarding aspects to being a constituency assistant. Maybe you have an example or two of the type of things that you've been able to help with, that you go home in the evening and say, you know, I feel good about my job because I help people do X or Y. Can you think of a couple examples of that?
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of examples like that. And again, it's not always that I've been able to help them with their problem. It's just that I've been able to listen to their problem, and they've just left feeling that much better because someone actually listened and cared what they were going through. So I had someone that needed help getting funding for an orthopedic shoe or something. And I don't even think he came in, we chatted for a long time, just sort of explained the issue, listened to him. I don't think we even made a phone call. I don't know that what we actually did is the reason that it all worked out, but it worked out and he came back and was thrilled, and yeah, so it's just usually a simple...
It's an important point you're raising, because I think having an open ear to listen, very often the solutions, people have the solutions, but they need some confirmation that their solutions are the right solutions. By being able to listen has helped a lot of people, and I think that's another thing you and Judy are very good at, and I'm certainly incredibly fortunate to have you both as constituents. We have there must be also times in the constituency office where you must be frustrated. I can imagine that there's we are recipients of chain emails, for example, and there must be times when people feel unsatisfied with the response they get from one MLA, so they go MLA shopping, and I'm sure my colleagues Carol James, Rob Fleming, and others have had MLA shoppers as well. But all in all, would you say that it's been a rewarding experience as for you personally as a constituency assistant?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, educational and rewarding. It's been a great, coming up on 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Teresa. I really appreciate everything you do in the constituency office. Obviously, Judy, who was interviewing me, I appreciate everything she does as well. I'm incredibly fortunate, and I think, frankly, the citizens of Oak Bay, Gordon Head are fortunate to have both you and Judy there. Thank you.
Thank you.